He wants to hang out with you next week. And I was like, for what? He's like, I think he's trying to f*** you.
Hollywood men that I just watched go up there, they all come down off the shuttle looking sad in the eyes. All of them wearing Sean John and looking oily.
Things are still operating there. Things are still moving right along. Was Epstein Island ever raided?
Terrence Howard just shook the table with these claims, and people are saying he might have cracked something wide open. He's now backing the idea that Diddy and Epstein could have moved in circles that had way more in common than anyone wanted to admit. In a recent interview, Terrence revealed that Diddy once invited him over for a reason that didn't sit right at all. At first, it sounded business only. Diddy asked Terrence to help him with acting. Then he wanted to hear his music. Cool, normal industry talk, right? But Terrence said the vibe switched up fast. Instead of working on scripts or tracks, he claims Diddy would just sit there staring at him, not saying much, not doing much.
He invited me for weeks, asking me to come and teach him how to, wanted me to be his acting coach for a while. Go there and he's sitting around just looking. I'm like, okay, what's the material you want to work on? He's just looking at me. Then next thing you know, okay, hey, will you help me? I want to hear your music. So I come over there and I play the music. And he's sitting there just looking at me, like waiting. Okay. So then my assistant was like, he wants to hang out with you next week. And I was like, for what? He's like, I think he's trying to f*** you. That's what my assistant said. And I was like, oh, okay. Now I get it. So now no more communication. Now you know to be hands-off with somebody.
That's when alarms started going off in his head. Terrence also spoke on how Hollywood can twist people's minds. He said when folks lose money, lose roles, or feel pressure to stay famous, they can start doing things they normally wouldn't. And according to him, that's when powerful figures step in and take advantage of that weakness. Terrence believes there's a bigger system moving behind the scenes, one built on power, secrets, pressure, and control. That's where the Epstein connection comes in.
Out money, you got to take. You're going through so much to try and deal with life. You are literally, it's an unhealthy space. And so eventually you're going to go too far, Who knows what happened to Philip? Who knows what he had to do in order to get to where he was at? There's a lot of things that people do that end up sitting and they can't get over it. And they got to keep getting high, hoping to get it out of their head, But when you lose your man card, that's the only thing I can think of. You lose your damn man card.
What is that? What do you mean by that?
You give up your ability, your right to being a man. A man don't take it, a man gives it. So when you give up that man card, you don't get that back.
Are you saying what I think you're saying?
No, I'm saying what I'm saying. You don't get that back. You come into this world as a man one time. You give up that right for anything, for fear of being hurt, fear of somebody doing something, for wanting to gain something. When you give up that man card right, you lose some spiritual energy that has always been pushing through. Like if a woman gives up her womanly right of being a mother and taking care of her family and do all those things, when you give up those things, but when you give up your manhood, I've never seen somebody recover from it. That was all the people that went to the puffy parties. That was all the people that did all those things thinking that there was never going to be a consequence for what they were doing.
For years, Epstein faced accusations of using influence and private gatherings to gain leverage over high-profile people. Now, with more attention on elite parties and hidden networks, some believe entertainment and politics may have overlapping circles that most people never get to see.
I think Epstein girls triggered a bigger alarm.
Yeah, but I'm sorry. Why is nobody paying attention to the fact that there were age girls that were allegedly attached to Diddy as well?
Katt Williams has been saying for years that Hollywood plays by hidden rules and secret games. So when Terrence started opening up about his experience, a lot of people felt like it just backed up what Katt had been hinting at this whole time.
A lot of people indeed do ask that. How do you know what goes on at the P. Diddy party if you weren't at the P. Diddy party? They would have these parties in the Hollywood Hills. They would have a parking lot where they would shuttle people up. So everybody would meet in this parking lot and they would send shuttles down to, Diddy's parties. I would go to the parking lot and I would watch them all go up there. 5 hours later, I'm still in the parking lot when they come down. Just to see all them big time Hollywood men that I just watched go up there. They all come down off the shuttle looking sad in the eyes. All of them wearing Sean John and looking oily, and they all walk crazy like this, and their shoelaces were always untied. I don't know why. And then they would get in their car and they would drive off standing up. Big boy, all of them. I couldn't believe it.
Katt once said, "You can call it jokes if you want, but the only people who don't laugh are the ones who were on that shuttle." That line alone had people looking sideways at the industry. Katt and Terrence both saw the system up close. But there are also investigators like Whitney Webb who have spent years digging into these powerful circles and spotting patterns in how figures like Epstein and Diddy allegedly moved.
In a nutshell, the interest in the Diddy case was similar to my interest in the Epstein case initially, in that, the way the media narrative is about these cases is sort of, very focused on either Diddy or Epstein, and like they were the mastermind of all of this stuff. And these people never exist in a vacuum. They tend to have significant moneyed benefactors that somehow evade persecution or even investigation. That's very obvious in the Epstein case, but I think it's also pretty true as it relates to, the Diddy case as well. And he learned this behavior that he's now, in prison for and awaiting trial for from, various other figures that have somehow evaded the kind of charges that now face Diddy. And why is that? So a lot of similarities in the charges in some ways to the Epstein and also Ghislaine Maxwell cases. But what's interesting, though, is that, whereas with Epstein and Maxwell, it was sort of the FBI and SDNY leading, the Diddy case has had a lot of involvement from the Department of Homeland Security, which is kind of unusual, it seems. So Clive Davis in particular is the person that is really credited with allowing Bad Boy Records to be a success, because, they really wanted to have been successful if they didn't enter into that very early distribution and promo deal with Clive Davis's Arista Records, when they were created. And this is also true of, his mentor, Andre Harrell at Uptown Records. Uptown Records wanted to have been successful if it wasn't for their distribution deal with MCA, for example, which is now Universal Studios. I think the same is true for Russell Simmons' label Def Jam, but I think in their case it was CBS Records, which is also related to sort of the Clive Davis story. Clive Davis was, at sort of the at a major post within the CBS recording subsidiaries. He got involved in this major payola scandal, which is basically, generally payola is when there's bribery to get, singles of a particular artist or a particular label played more on certain stations, which is illegal. But in the case of Clive Davis, it was payola basically tied to a heroin ring, and his top assistant, his main aide, was known for sort of being a fixer at the label and supplying, these stations they were, allegedly bribing, and also just other people, artists, under the label and whatever, with drugs, with products, with all sorts of things. Clive Davis arguably evaded charges for that. He got let go of CBS. Why it was kind of hot. The investigation, arguably because they didn't want any of the scandal beyond the payola aspect to come back and bite the company in the butt, basically. And it was that heroin ring, by the way, was tied to organized crime interests. Mainly, I believe the Genovese crime family, which had kind of a long and storied history in the music industry through Roulette Records and figures like Morris Levy, who, for example, funded the first hip hop label, Sugar Hill. And so, there's basically been this unorganized crime effort to dominate those particular labels for some time. And Davis stands accused of people that were once close to, Combs and later became rivals, like Suge Knight, and also his former bodyguard Gene Deal, of sort of training Diddy in this using drugs and to control people.
According to those reports, men like Epstein and Diddy didn't move alone. They had wealthy backers, major connections, business allies, and people with serious influence who somehow never seemed to face charges or even real investigations. That's the pattern Whitney points out again and again. Now, people are noticing that all three voices are circling around similar themes, just saying it in different ways. It's getting harder to ignore the idea that Hollywood has layers most people never see. There are power structures, there are private invitations. Not everyone says yes, and sometimes the real story isn't what happens inside the mansion. It's who walks out different afterward. And one person who has consistently called out Diddy's alleged actions is Jaguar Wright. The former singer Jaguar Wright recently stepped back into the spotlight, this time talking about the Wayfair conspiracy and how crime doesn't always hide in dark corners.
You know, Epstein was involved heavily in the human trafficking to where Wayfair, there was, you know, some young girls missing throughout the past few decades where after a girl goes missing, Wayfair will technically have a furniture piece with the young girl's name at a listed price of, you know, $10,000, $12,000, $8,000, where the pieces of furniture were sold. There's receipts of that. A lot purchased by Jeffrey Epstein's assistant, as far as possibly tracking. And those same items that were listed, you could go back on there now and see them down for, like, you know, regular price, $200, $300, to where they were using the internet and Wayfair as a way, which is a furniture company, as a way to sell, you know, humans. To see that, just give me your thoughts on possibly that level of execution when it comes to human trafficking.
I mean, the truth is when it comes to that business, because it is a business, it's a huge business, none of us are really prepared to have that conversation. I've sat here with y'all already and I've talked to y'all about girls getting moved around on tours and tour buses, girls getting moved around on video shoots. There's 80 trillion ways to sell a human being. The question is why is it so hard to believe that any of that stuff could be possible?
She said a lot of shady activity doesn't sit in back alleys. It blends into regular neighborhoods, normal houses, everyday streets. According to her, you could drive past something illegal every single day and never even realize what's really going on behind those doors. Jaguar also raised serious questions about how the whole Epstein situation was handled, especially when it comes to his island. She asked, what happened to it? What happened to the plane, the properties, the tunnels, the money? Those same kinds of questions have also been asked about Diddy's alleged areas of operation, yet many people feel like clear answers never came.
Being called into FBI tip lines. Who didn't investigate? Who didn't do more due diligence? Who didn't bother to at least go and discredit these things that were being called in? Like, it's all possible. And I don't understand why anybody is thinking that it's not. It's just, there are so many ridiculous stories being pushed out with the truth at the same time. It's done intentionally so people won't believe the truth when they hear it, or so people will doubt it. I'm not saying that the Wayfair thing is real, and I'm not going to sit up here and say that it's not possible, because it is possible. The question is, by the time we get to the truth, is anybody even going to believe it? Because there's going to be 80 million different versions of the story of what actually happened. Am I making sense?
No, total sense. And like you said, there's it's happening in plain sight. It's probably happening in your neighbor's house. Who knows?
Listen, if you got whole neighborhoods being bought up by cartels, neighborhoods in residential areas being ran by criminal organizations where everything looks normal, people are driving by not even realizing that's a whole thing over there. Some of those houses are probably holding people who are, being traded or sold.
She says people love calling her crazy, but now, with more information surfacing over time, she believes that label doesn't hit the same anymore. In her words, it's easier to attack the messenger than to deal with an uncomfortable message. She also explained that cases like these take years to surface because either people don't believe the alleged victims or the alleged victims are too afraid to speak up out of fear for their safety.
Yeah, these things don't disappear in thin air.
No, I'm trying to, nobody's paying attention to a lot of things. Like, For all we know, things are still operating there. Things are still moving right along. Was Epstein Island ever raided? Did they ever do a raid there? Did anybody ever go there to confiscate or to did you ever hear about it? Because I didn't.
Yeah, I did not.
So who knows? It's there was rumors that those tunnels were taken over by particular governments who were still letting things operate after they moved El Chapo out of the way. So it's like you said, the world is on fire.
The world is on fire.
I'm just sick
All right.
of people calling me a damn liar. And I'm gonna tell you something right now. If people still think that I'm crazy with everything that's coming out, then maybe you need to go and get your mental health checked. Like we gotta it's gotten to the point where just calling somebody that's saying things that make you feel uncomfortable crazy is corny.
What is the mentality behind even people that you know?
Fear.
That word moves around a lot.
Fear. It's fear. Why would you want to throw yourself out there when you have people that have access to lawyers, who have access to private investigators, who have the ability to hunt you down at your house, at your doctor's office, hunt down your family members, bother them, harass them? And by the way, just in case people have forgotten the details that I'm speaking of, that's what happened to that 13-year-old autistic victim. Well, she was 13 at the time. She's now in her late 30s, of course, in Alabama, who was being represented by Tony Busby. When you think about what happened with her situation, like let's think about that. Because she was all kinds of railroaded, all kinds of stalked, all kinds of harassed, to the point where she was willing to dismiss her lawsuit with prejudice, meaning the lawsuit could never be brought back up again. Those claims could never be addressed in court again. And it was all because they were lying, right? They were lying. And then your accuser goes to court to sue your lawyer for defamation. Can't prove it. It gets thrown out. They take it to a higher court because they're looking for consideration. Still can't prove it. You see what I'm saying? Like, who's going to protect these people?
Now we're hearing similar themes from different voices and different experiences, all circling the same idea. Power protects itself, and sometimes entertainment overlaps with elite circles most people don't fully understand. Just look at Prince Andrew, full name Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, the younger brother of King Charles III, who has faced major public scrutiny over misconduct allegations in recent years. Police say the investigation focuses on claims that Prince Andrew may have sent confidential government documents to Jeffrey Epstein while serving as a UK trade envoy.
Of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, the younger brother of King Charles III, comes on Andrew's 66th birthday. The former prince, who was stripped of his royal titles late last year over his ties to convicted offender Jeffrey Epstein, is now in custody, being questioned on suspicion of misconduct in public office, a serious charge that on conviction carries a life prison sentence. Police arrested him at his home on one of the King's royal estates this morning, a few hours outside of London. They're now carrying out searches at 2 addresses in that area. They're also assessing reports that the former royal sent sensitive trade reports to the billionaire pedophile back in 2010, confidential information about investment opportunities around the world, including Afghanistan and Hong Kong. Multiple police departments across the UK have previously said they were reviewing ties between Andrew and Epstein, including allegations that a woman was here to the UK by Epstein to have a encounter with the king's brother. Andrew, always denying any wrongdoing in relation to Epstein, says he regrets their friendship. The arrest of a senior member of the royal family is extraordinary. It's considered unprecedented in the modern history of the British monarchy. Errol?
All right, Tina, thank you very much. We now want to discuss this with CBS News royal contributor Amanda Foreman. Amanda, good morning. I only see you when there's crisis with the royal family. And this is something you and I have never discussed before, that the family in the modern era has never seen. So for the monarchy, how stunning a development is this arrest?
Well, it is a stunning development for the public. For the royal family, obviously, they will have known that bad things were about to happen to Andrew, and they have been in damage control now for several weeks. As we know, he moved from his home Royal Lodge to Sandringham very, very quickly indeed, a couple of weeks ago, and has been up north in Sandringham ever since. So this isn't a total surprise.
That alone has people raising eyebrows and asking serious questions. Now, let's be clear. Being arrested does not mean someone is guilty. It simply means authorities believe there is enough suspicion to dig deeper. If charges were ever filed and led to a conviction, misconduct in public office can carry heavy penalties under UK law. Officials have also confirmed that this investigation is separate from the civil case he previously faced.
Fresh revelations about the former Prince Andrew have been found in the huge batch of Epstein files released last week. Among them is an email apparently from Epstein's accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, which appears to contradict Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's long-held suggestion that the now infamous photo of him with a victim, Virginia Giuffre, was not real. There are also new allegations about what went on at Epstein's Florida home 20 years ago. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has always denied any wrongdoing. Here's Ellie Price, and a warning: her report contains some fairly explicit details.
This is the image that marks the start of the slow downfall of a prince. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor with his accuser Virginia Giuffre when she was 17.
I have no recollection of ever meeting this lady. None whatsoever.
But he did meet her, and according to an email from Ghislaine Maxwell to Jeffrey Epstein, she wanted to state for the record as fact, in 2001 she was in London and met a number of friends, including the former prince, and that's when the photo was taken. But now fresh damaging revelations, this time a legal letter which claims Epstein offered to pay an exotic dancer to perform at a party in 2006. Where there were young women dressed provocatively, some appeared to be as young as 14 years old. It says Epstein and the then Prince Andrew told the dancer they wanted to have a threesome, and then prevailed upon her to engage in various acts. The BBC has approached Andrew Mountbatten Windsor for comment. He has previously strenuously denied any wrongdoing. It's all added to calls for him to testify in the US about what he knew about Epstein.
I am so proud of the woman who has come forward, because it helps so many of us when survivors come forward, to hold these men accountable. The survivors they're the foundation of it. Without us, nothing's going to happen. So I do hope that Andrew will testify. I do hope he will come to the US and testify.
Buckingham Palace has previously said that's a matter for him and his conscience. But if a picture paints 1,000 words, there have been just too many pictures for the palace to bear.
Back in 2022, Andrew settled a civil lawsuit with Virginia Giuffre, who had accused him of abuse when she was a teenager. That settlement came without any admission of guilt. Police have made it clear that the current probe is not about that case. Still, the Epstein connection keeps resurfacing and keeping his name in headlines. Newly released documents reportedly suggest that in 2010, Andrew forwarded reports about official trips, including visits to Vietnam and Singapore, to Epstein after those files became public. The anti-monarchy group Republic formally reported the matter to police, pushing for further review.
Background. Here's what's happening today that's new. The House compelling a powerful billionaire who's usually behind the scenes, Les Wexner, to go under oath, to provide answers about his long business history with Epstein. He was interviewed where he lives in Ohio. Democratic lawmakers led this questioning today. Some Republican staff members, we're told, also attended. Now, Wexner's a key figure because we already knew Epstein made so much money off of him. This is a one example of a photograph from the Oversight Committee with an individual redacted, again, under the reasons we've been told, but the two men having a drink, hanging out, whatever you see there. Now, Epstein made money off this man, and we know big sums were also returned. Now, lawmakers say their evidence shows over $1 billion cumulatively went from Wexner to Epstein, and that he's in the files over 1,000 times. You're looking at one file, one photograph. There are many, many other references and contacts with him. Now, that $1 billion is part of the fortune that ultimately propped up Epstein's crime spree. And it's been documented that Wexner, back in the day, cut ties with Epstein around his first legal problems in Florida. And if you think about some of the people who've gotten in trouble recently, you remember a lot of them are being basically held to account because after Epstein's conviction for crime involving a murder, what they call soliciting prostitution for someone under 18, and people years later were in contact with him and they got in trouble for that. This one is a little different. Wexner can show and point to evidence, financially and otherwise, there's documents that they cut ties around that time. In fact, Wexner also says Epstein stole from him, and they got some of that money back, as I mentioned. Now, today, the new Wexner testimony includes a public statement where he describes how, despite his own business skills and, purported acumen and intelligence, he says he was duped by a world-class con man and that he regrets ever having met him. Wexner also suggested today that Epstein was a skilled manipulator living a type of, quote, double life, and that he would compartmentalize different sets of people and crimes. Now, if you do an investigation, you follow these kind of pieces of testimony or allegation. And there's some support for that because the emails do show Epstein kind of operating in a different way, even with very different language and different sort of references depending on who he's dealing with. The key question that I'm going to get to here is whether Wexner knew that or not. Wexner suggests that he was only and essentially one of Epstein's financial victims.
On top of that, as more billionaires and powerful businessmen face scrutiny, some are offering surprising defenses. For example, Lex Wexner has claimed that Epstein deceived him regarding financial dealings, adding another layer to this complicated web. When you really zoom out, this story feels way bigger than just Hollywood drama. Terrence Howard talked about uncomfortable invitations that didn't sit right with him. Katt Williams spoke on what he claims to have seen around elite parties and private circles. Jaguar Wright questioned how trafficking networks could operate in plain sight without people noticing. And now, a senior member of the British royal family has faced investigation tied to Epstein. That's not random. That's a pattern people can't ignore. It starts looking less like isolated scandals and more like a global web of power, influence, and protection. And that's the part that makes people uneasy. If names from entertainment, politics, and royalty keep popping up, what else hasn't been revealed yet? Do you think more connections will come to light? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video, and I'll catch you in the next one.